Boogeyman Ben.
Hey everyone, it's Boogeyman Ben. Hope everyone's doing well and everyone's having a nice Sunday. This video is going to be for Michael Vorhees. He sent me a message, I'm going to say 3 or 4 weeks back, asking if I would do my ranking of the Batman films. This is technically not a horror video request, but I have talked about my love for the Batman film series as well as The Dark Knight Rises, and so just go through the movies and give my ranking on each of the films in the Batman series. So it's going to be 2 separate series. You're going to have what started as the Tim Burton Batmans and led into the Joel Schumacher Batmans, and then of course the Chris Nolan Batmans, which just wrapped up in 2012 with The Dark Knight Rises. So, Michael, I hope you enjoy this. Hope everyone else enjoys this, and please stay tuned. Number 7 on my list, should be as no surprise to anyone, is Batman and Robin, which came out in 1997, directed by Joel Schumacher, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, George Clooney as Batman and Bruce Wayne, Chris O'Donnell as Robin, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Just a really, really shitty movie. I remember when this movie came out, I was in college at the time, and a bunch of my buddies had gone to see it, and I think I had to work or something, so I wasn't able to go see it with them, but they kept telling me, don't see this movie. Don't see this movie in the theaters, and I didn't, and I held off on seeing it until it came out. It was the only Batman film I haven't seen in the theater, and I held off watching it until it was released on tape, VHS tape, and DVD. And although I don't think it's the worst movie ever made in history, when compared to the other films in the series, especially now that you have the Nolan films as well, it's just all over the place. It's so over the top campy, and I don't have a problem with camp, but George Clooney, who's a great actor, just doesn't bring anything to the role of Batman. And I didn't think Mr. Freeze being cast as, them casting Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze was a good choice at all. Initially, when they were first casting the movie, they were saying that Patrick Stewart was going to play Mr. Freeze, and that Demi Moore would play Poison Ivy. Now, I love Uma Thurman, but again, she's just so over the top and just really not. It's just the way the part is written. She's a great actress, but the part is just horribly written. And Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze is he's like the Terminator. I mean, he's the Terminator in a big refrigerator-sized suit. And I just thought that if they had toned it down a little bit and made the characters a little bit more menacing, there was just nothing menacing about this. And Bane is just horrible in this. I mean, unfortunately, the actor that played Bane, Jeep Swenson, passed away. I think it was right after filming. But yeah, there's no interesting characters in this, and really bad film, and just really destroyed, I think, what the amazing groundwork that Tim Burton laid with the original Batman. But yeah, it's like this is my lowest on the list. If I had to give this movie a rating, I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 10. I bought it because I'm a completist. It's in the collection, but it's a movie I've actually never watched this DVD. I watched the documentary. I've never watched the movie. I watched the documentary on this DVD, but I have not watched the movie. So yeah, 3 out of 10 for Batman and Robin. Number 6 on my list is Batman Forever. This was Joel Schumacher's first Batman effort. He was following in the heels of Tim Burton. Tim Burton did stay on as a producer for this film. This film came out in 1995. Val Kilmer would replace Michael Keaton as Batman and Bruce Wayne. Then you had Chris O'Donnell joining as Robin, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, and Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase Meridian. This film I actually really enjoyed when it came out in the theater. My big issue with it, though, is I did not like Val Kilmer as Batman. Also, some of the lines were getting a little bit campier in this film. You know, like the whole line is, you know, with Alfred saying, can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?" And Batman's like, "I'll get drive-through." And I mean, it's not like that big of a deal now, but when you watch this film and then you watch Batman and Robin, they just amp that up so much, so you can just see the groundwork of the camp sort of starting in this film. And Batman is a dark character, and I don't think he needs to be played campy. I was never a big fan of the Batman and Robin television series from the 60s. Just not a fan of that show at all. I know a lot of people love it, but it just wasn't my type of film or TV series. It just wasn't my type of TV series. Jim Carrey was huge at the time, and I think he is the best part of this film. I think he's great as the Riddler. Originally, it was supposed to be Robin Williams that was going to play the Riddler, and that was a casting that I had heard about when the first Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, had come out in '89, that they were going to do Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and Robin Williams was going to play the Riddler. And I think when, you know, Tim Burton sort of left the project, stayed on as a producer, but didn't direct this film, they changed it up because Jim Carrey was a hot commodity at the time. You know, he had done Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, The Mask. I mean, he was huge box office. Tommy Lee Jones, I actually liked as Two-Face. A lot of people complain about him, saying he's too much like that the Riddler and the Two-Face are more like the Joker in this than individual characters, but I actually liked both of them in this. My big problem is Val Kilmer. I just did not like him as Batman or Bruce Wayne. I didn't think he was as interesting as Michael Keaton, who I loved in the role. I thought Chris O'Donnell did a great job as Robin, and Nicole Kidman, she's fine in her role. Nothing great, nothing horrible. But I actually do like this film. It's not my favorite in the Batman films. It's number 6 on my list, but I have to be honest, if I had to give it a rating, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. So yeah, really enjoyed Batman Forever. Next on my list would be 1992's Batman Returns, which would be the sequel to Tim Burton's first film that would come out in 1989. I actually really loved this film. I loved the look of it. I loved that it set at Christmas time. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was terrific as Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman. Loved Danny DeVito as the Penguin. The Penguin was never one of my favorite characters, and I love what Tim Burton did with the character. This is more, Danny DeVito and Tim Burton, they just made the character much more interesting. That he was raised by penguins, and he almost has penguin mannerisms and characteristics, and I just love that, and I love how savage he is in it. I also think Michael Keaton is just amazing as Batman. Loved him in this movie. I was surprised that a lot of people did not like this movie when it came out. This movie came out the year I graduated high school. I remember going to see it. It was a huge deal that this movie was coming out. And so for some reason people just didn't warm up to it as much as they had the original Batman by Burton. And I think it's because this one is pretty much a Tim Burton movie, just in the Batman universe. But I love the look of Gotham City. I love the cold environment because it's set during Christmas. I love Christopher Walken as Max Schreck. I thought he was terrific in it. Very well written, and very well acted, and a lot of great special effects, and I just absolutely love this film. And if I had to give this movie a rating, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Just absolutely love Batman Returns. Next on my list would be 2005's Batman Begins, which was Chris Nolan's first effort into the Batman universe. Now, I, like many people, was skeptical when I heard this movie was coming out. I was not a fan of Memento. A lot of people loved that film, but I wasn't a huge fan of that. I actually think I need to give that movie another shot. I did like Insomnia, though, and I thought Chris Nolan did a great job doing that film. But coming on the heels of Batman and Robin, it had been, nearly 8 years since a Batman film had been made, and I was just skeptical that they could. I was a little bit disappointed they were going to start it all over again and go back to Batman's origins. I really would have preferred if they had tied into the old series at the time. But when I saw this film, and just everybody in it, Christian Bale, Liam Neeson, Michael Caine, even Katie Holmes, I thought, did a good job in this film, even though I thought she was the weakest element of the film. It's just a terrific film, and you really see what drives Batman. And I think Christian Bale is a terrific Batman. He ties for me with Michael Keaton. It's hard for me to say that one is better than the other because they're both in very different series. The Burton Schumacher films are very different from the Nolan films, but I love both actors as the character. But I thought he really owned it. I love the whole thing with the Scarecrow in this. I love that it was a more realistic retelling of the Batman origins, but I love that they kept it dark, and that was something that I thought was lacking in the last two films in the original series with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So yeah, absolutely love this film. I was completely 100% with Nolan, knowing that he was going to continue the franchise based on the success of this film. If I had to give this film a rating, I would give it the same rating I gave Batman Returns, 8.5 out of 10. Just excellent, excellent film. Now, number 3 for me is The Dark Knight, which would come out in 2008. This was the follow-up to Batman Begins, and what a terrific film it is. Not only is Christian Bale at the top of his game in this, a lot of people really are critical of him and the way that his voice is as the Dark Knight. But he's never bothered me. I mean, Christian Bale brought his own characteristics to the role, and I think he did a terrific job. And of course, who cannot say enough great things about Heath Ledger as the Joker? Now, I'm a huge fan of Jack Nicholson's Joker. Loved him and in the 1989 film, and I've heard so many people say that Heath Ledger blows Jack Nicholson's Joker away. Now, I appreciate both, but I was very skeptical hearing that Heath Ledger was going to be cast as the Joker. Initially, I had heard rumors of Crispin Glover being cast as the Joker, and I thought he would have been a really interesting choice because I thought he could have played that character very well. But when I heard Heath Ledger, I had never really been a big fan of Heath Ledger. I'd seen him in a few things, but didn't know if he would have the range to do the Joker role. And I mean, when I saw the first trailer for the film and just saw him in the role, I was blown away. I don't know why I ever had any doubt that he could pull the role off. I mean, it's such a tragedy that he passed away before the movie was even released, because I think it really would have cemented him as a huge powerhouse actor. He just is tremendous in this role. You can't take your eyes off of him. Just amazing, amazing take on the Joker. Very different from Jack Nicholson's. But I also want to say that Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, and Two-Face is terrific in the role, as is Gary Oldman, who I've always been a huge fan of, as Commissioner Gordon. In the first Batman series that Burton and Schumacher had done, I never thought Commissioner Gordon was a very. I mean, Pat Hingle played him pretty well, but I never thought he was like one of the best role in the films. But I sure love how Gary Oldman played him. I mean, he established him in Batman Begins, but in this movie, he's just friggin' amazing. I mean, he's amazing in everything, but he was just amazing in this film, just like everybody else was. If I had to give this movie a rating, this movie gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely love The Dark Knight. Number 2 on my list is Tim Burton's Batman. Now, a lot of people might be shocked that I picked this one over Chris Nolan's Dark Knight, but growing up in the 80s, when this movie came out, it was a juggernaut, and I remember this is what made me a fan of Batman. The reason why I went to see this is because I was a huge fan of Tim Burton, from movies like Beetlejuice and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and also I was a fan of Michael Keaton from Mr. Mom and Beetlejuice and Gung Ho and Night Shift and some of those other movies. Just a huge fan of those films, and then of course Jack Nicholson. I was a huge fan of Jack Nicholson just from The Shining and Terms of Endearment, Prizzi's Honor, movies that I had seen growing up, and just a big fan of the actor, and that's what made me go see this. And I remember I saw this movie I think 3 times in the movie theater, and just was amazed by it, the scope of it, the way that Tim Burton designed Gotham City in the film. I thought Michael Keaton was a terrific Batman. I remember back in the 80s when they announced that Michael Keaton was going to be Batman, there was so much controversy about it. Mr. Mom's going to play Batman. I mean, that was like the big stigma against it, but he was amazing in the role. And until Christian Bale came around, no one else, in my opinion, could touch the role. I didn't think Val Kilmer or George Clooney were good in the role. I just always thought that Keaton just owned that role until Bale came around, and now they're tied for me. I love both of them. And I'm anxious to see what Ben Affleck's going to do with the role. But also, I mean, just Jack Nicholson as the Joker is amazing in this film. I mean, he holds your attention from frame one, and he's just awesome through the whole film, just playing it very over the top, but it works. And, of course, Burton's direction is just phenomenal. Another film that gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely love Tim Burton's Batman. And so my number one is, of course, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, I saw this movie 3 times in the movie theater, paying full price all 3 times. I absolutely fucking love this movie. There is not a better Batman film, in my opinion. A lot of people were critical of it, overly critical, in my opinion, because I think it's just what happens when you have a success like The Dark Knight. And plus, this one, unfortunately, came out amidst tragedy with the shooting in Colorado at the movie theater. But I think The Dark Knight Rises is the best Batman movie ever made. And it's a movie that I can watch time and time again and just be thrust right back into this world. I thought Christian Bale should have gotten an Oscar nomination for the performance in this. He played the character. There was so much sympathy that you felt for him. I thought it was Bale's best performance as the character. Which was terrific because it was his swan song as the character. I also thought that Anne Hathaway did a terrific job as Catwoman. She, filled the shoes left vacant by Michelle Pfeiffer perfectly and did a terrific job in this movie. But I have to say that Tom Hardy as Bane is just commands the screen, and it's just what a formidable foe. And I felt like even though the Joker and the Scarecrow and Harvey Dent and the other films were great adversaries for Batman, I don't think there was one that was as strong as the character of Bane. And Bane really, the way that Tom Hardy plays him in this film is just, he is terrifying. He is so creepy, and I think that he really made the character so much more interesting than how he had been cast in the Batman and Robin movie, which was horrible. I absolutely loved the Bane character. I thought he was a great villain. I loved the whole story in it. With Bane sort of taking over Gotham City, and Batman being in exile, and the whole thing about Blake the cop, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's phenomenal in the film, as is Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, dealing with the repercussions of what happened in The Dark Knight. Everything in this film is just terrific. Chris Nolan's direction is terrific, the writing is terrific, and if you don't get a little bit emotional in this film, then there's something wrong with you. I think this has the most emotional pack of any Batman film ever made. My rating of The Dark Knight Rises is an 11 out of 10. So that is my rating of the Batman franchises. Michael, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know your thoughts. And like always, thanks everyone for watching these, and stay tuned for more videos. Hope everyone's doing well. Have a great day. Take it easy. Peace.